ladies and gentlemen. They're saying it is a deadly fungal infection that's spreading rapidly across U.S. health facilities. And, it brings to mind something that happened to me back in 2006. I had my appendix removed. And while I was in the hospital, I picked up a staph infection. Now, I didn't notice it right away. It wasn't until a few weeks after I was out of the hospital, I noticed my incision was not healing. And I went to the doctor, and he did one of those culture tests on me, and it came back as a strep infection. And he told me, he said, more than likely, you picked it up from being in the hospital, because I did not have that. And I had blood work done prior to going into the hospital, and I had no infection. But I did end up with one. And I remember the doctor that I was going to was switching my antibiotic, and he kept switching it, and nothing was working. So finally, he said, "Look, I need you to take some time and push it aside so that I can admit you into the hospital." And he said, "What we're going to do is put you on," he said, "this is the most powerful antibiotic you can get." So what they did was they put me on an IV drip of antibiotics around the clock, nonstop around the clock. And I stayed in the hospital for about 3 days. After that, it finally went away and everything healed. But I'm sure it's probably more common than uncommon for many people to go into these health facilities and you walk away with some type of infection. So that's my story, but let's move on. So there's a deadly and highly drug resistant fungus is spreading at an alarming rate in long-term care hospitals and other health facilities caring for very sick people. This is according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and they made this announcement on Monday. So this fungal infection is called Candida Auris, and they said it has tripled nationally from 476 in 2019 to 1,471 in 2021. This is according to the CDC data. There were cases where a person carrying the fungus but was not infected, but they didn't feel any of the symptoms or notice anything unusual. But they said this infection has now quadrupled in the same time period from 1,077 to 4,040. Preliminary data suggests the numbers have continued to rise. Scientists believe the fungus is not a threat to healthy people whose immune systems can fight it off, but poses a danger to medically fragile people, including nursing home patients on ventilators, cancer patients on chemotherapy, and anybody with a compromised immune system. So between 30 to 70% of hospitalized people who develop bloodstream infections are estimated to die. The CDC experts said the increase spread underscores the need for robust infection control plans to reduce transmissions of fungus that can cause outbreaks because it lingers on surfaces and spreads through contact with patients and contaminated objects. If the fungi gets into the hospital, They are very difficult to control and get out. All right. So this is according to a professor of medicine, William Schaffner. And he said they can persist, smoldering, causing infections for a considerable period of time, despite the best efforts of infection control within a hospital facility. And you know what? That is exactly what my doctor told me back in 2006 when I was going through my battle with my infection. He said, they can do the best sanitizing job in the hospital, and people will still get these infections that are in there. They're very difficult to get rid of once they're in the hospital. You would think disinfecting the surfaces would be good enough, not for all of these infections. And I did not know that until back in 2006 when my doctor told me about it, you know. So anyway, they're saying authorities first detected Candida in the United States back in 2016. The fungus is considered a serious global public health threat because it is resistant to different classes of antibiotic drugs, resistant to often the first treatment deployed, and it remains rare in the United States, but researchers are concerned that a small but growing number of cases are resisting the class of drugs. There are a few antifungal in the pipeline, so it gives us hope, said Lyman. The fungus has now been detected in more than half of the states, with 17 states identifying their first case between 2019 and 2021. Most spread has occurred in long term acute care hospitals and skilled nursing home facilities, where patients are more likely to be on ventilators, the CDC says. Case counts are likely to be underestimated because screening requires specialized equipment and is conducted unevenly across the United States. Candida can cause fatal infections in the bloodstream, heart, and brain. The CDC does not track how many people die, but it can be difficult to discern the cause of death when the patient is at the highest risk or often already fighting for their lives. The emergence of the fungus detected more than a decade ago in India, South Africa, and South America has perplexed researchers. Fungi often cannot withstand the temperature of the human body, but one leading theorist said that Candida is now capable of doing so because it has evolved to survive in a warming world. So, I mean, I did see something and they're mentioning it. They said The Last of Us. It's an HBO drama that talks about, a fungus and it infecting humans and causing a zombie apocalypse. All right. So, experts credit the show for generating interest in fungal infections that were often overshadowed by viruses and bacteria as the pathogens gripping public attention. Despite its deadly potential, the CDC says the spread of Candida can be stopped if hospitals emphasize surveillance, hand hygiene, and deep cleansing with the proper disinfectants. So, look, just be careful, especially if you have to go into a hospital. I know it's not like you can see these things coming, because you really can't. So, if you notice anything unusual when you come out of a hospital, see a doctor right away, especially if you can't determine what it is. And like I said, it's not unusual for that to happen. In fact, when I was still working out here in corporate America, I ran into a few people I worked with, and similar things happened to them when they got admitted in the hospital and had to stay for a while and got out, and they got out with an infection as well. So it does happen. Please tell me what you think about this story. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.